In 1985, Coca-Cola made the mistake of attempting to reinvent their century-old flavor formula. The change was met with surprising backlash, and within 2 months, the company restored the original recipe and sales soared. The conclusion of marketers was that the formula had stood the test of time. In his book, Nearing Home, Billy Graham argues that growing older should be valued as a symbol of standing the test of time, and he uses that Coca-Cola illustration as an example. He contends that aging is not an obstacle to the goodness God has for us, but an opportunity to continue to lead the way for younger generations. As we grow older, we don't lose value, we deepen it. We become the stewards of wisdom, the bearers of stories, the living embodiment of lessons learned through time. While older generations may not match the speed of younger generations, they are still in many ways leading the way. Every mistake, every success adds to a rich legacy that can help light the path for those who follow. Aging isn't simply about passing time, it's about shaping it. Billy rightly points out that aging isn't simply about the idea of passing time and wasting away. It's about leaving a rich legacy that can help light the path for those who follow. I think all of our lives would be richer and fuller if we truly embrace that reality. And Christians particularly should be leading the charge in embracing the value and beauty of aging. Older generations can begin asking, how can God use my life, wisdom, experiences, and time to shape the future of those He has placed in my sphere of influence? And younger generations can begin asking, how can I honor and cherish older generations? And how can I learn and grow from those who have gone before me? I'm so glad you joined us for today's show, because we're going to learn how you can build bridges between generations so that we can more fully experience the richness that comes when we learn from and invest in one another intergenerationally. You're watching One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring hope and purpose to many. Let's go meet our guest for today. We're here today with Jeff Tintle Jr. to talk about how we can build bridges between generations. Jeff, it's awesome having you on the show and just being able to get to know you in life better as the soccer coach for my son. I guess it was at least 5 years ago.
Yes.
But so thanks so much for being on the show today.
It's an honor to be here, and I've seen some of your past shows, and you've had some incredible guests, so it's wonderful to sit in this seat.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, brother. And let's just introduce you to our viewers. Tell us about yourself, your family.
Sure. I'm a local guy. I graduated from Parkland a long time ago, and still living here. In fact, my wife is from Venezuela, so when we were getting married, we got married in our early 20s, and we decided that because we couldn't live near her family, we wanted to live near ours, and we thought this was a great place to raise a family and to live.
Yeah.
So we've been married for over 20 years. We have 3 boys, and myself, to provide for the family, I own a couple different businesses, and I've been given the good fortune that I can pursue some of my passions and utilize my talents really to honor and to give glory to the Lord.
Yeah, I love that. And God's given you that entrepreneurial gift and spirit, and one of the ways that I love that you're using is what we're talking about today. And it's about honoring and cherishing older generations and building bridges between generations. So how did God kind of give you that passion?
Yeah, I have my life verse is, to whom much is given, much is required. So in Luke, and I just feel I've just been so blessed growing up in a middle class, a family, a stable family, economically, socially, with my parents being married, and just good relationships around me. And part of that was I got to grow up next to my grandparents, which you can only imagine. We would run away, so to speak, and we just run away next to my grandparents. And we got to do life with them. And they were grandparents ahead of their time. They would play. They were very active. They loved playing tennis. They loved, my grandfather taught me about archery and bow hunting, played tennis. We played tennis. We'd go swimming, and they were just very active. They were sort of what we know now as the modern sort of boomer grandparents, but this goes back 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then even your wife, Zendi, is from Venezuela, so
Correct.
You saw a little different aspect of culture when you married her. What was that like?
Yeah, so for Hispanic culture, I mean, your family's everything. Yeah. And it's so important. And family was always very important to my family as well, and the traditions and the loyalty and things of that nature. But it took on a whole new meaning, just seeing how they do family, so to speak, and, and they do life, and how they support one another, and even just the way they see themselves from their identity. They're more of a collective society, and making decisions and pursuing things. And the Lord used that to really teach me a lot of how other people think and perceive things, and I was able to embrace maybe some of the deficits in our culture in approaching family, and really fill that with what I learned from watching my wife and her family.
That's fantastic. And as we move into the building bridges between generations, how is it different for older generations than younger generations in our rapidly changing culture?
So it's funny that I'm here, and so we were members of a larger church, and I got involved in some of the senior ministry there, and I don't look like a senior, I'm not a senior, and I talk about a lot of senior-oriented things, just like the question that you're posing now. And I would first respond to kind of calling out the elephant in the room, where I like to say that my life is really helping seniors, is a lens to which seniors can see their life. I'm the result of what they've poured into and worked for through, say, my grandparents. I only have one, a grandmother who remains, and she lives here locally. And I'm the fruit of what she did to raise her children, and my parents as well, and who I am. And I always say that I'm a composite of all those experiences and all that investment over the years. And so for them growing up, she used to tell me all kinds of stories about growing up in the Depression and how they were close to their family. They lived in a neighborhood in Allentown. It was a German community. And our society has just changed so dramatically. Yeah. We live on our devices. Everyone makes decisions independent of one another. A lot of the marketers and the technology companies, they want you to customize things your way and have things on demand, and we've become very individualistic. Yes. And we've lost sight of that unity, the unity that you can only find in the harmony in the family, and ultimately through Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Wow. I love how you say that. We're a composite of those who've gone before us and invested in us. And I think that's easy in our culture to lose sight of or forget or devalue, right? Those who've gone before us. Why? It seems that there seems to be a growing division between older and younger generations. What do you think contributes to that?
Well, there's not just a division in generations. We can look at this past election cycle and the hot button issues that are dividing people. I think it's technology. I think largely it's technology and sort of the unbridled freedoms and personal freedoms, rugged individualism that gets, and it's just ongoing. I think it's just selfishness carried to new heights and levels. And unfortunately, I'm part of the problem as well. Sometimes I want to do things the way that I want to do it and under my preferences, and it can cause problems. It's a lack of harmony, I would say. And a lot of it's the technology. And you can go and what they call confirmation bias. You can go to any online blog or a flavor that you want to get affirmation in what you think. And you want to find people that think like you so that they can affirm that, yeah, you're correct in the way that you see this, when in fact, sometimes we are and sometimes we're not.
Yeah, and we don't even have to go find it. Algorithms bring it to us, right? They're going to bring that stuff right to us to help us be affirmed in our
yes,
biases.
Unfortunately so.
This is great. I'm excited to dig more into it. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk more. Stick with us as we come back to talk more about how we can build bridges between generations.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Welcome back to One Day Closer. We're here with Jeff Tintle Jr. talking about how we can build bridges between generations. So Jeff, we're talking about the division we see in between generations, and then how they've experienced life a little bit differently and how technology is a main part of that. Now, God gave you an awareness of this and then a passion and a desire to do something about it. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What are the first steps you took as you started to notice that you wanted to honor older adults and help them for Jesus? What are the steps you took?
Sure. So one of the things I omitted from my story was, growing up next to my grandparents, I also lived in a neighborhood where I was the paper boy. Yeah. And I was the paper boy for 8 or 9 years, and it was a wonderful experience. Most of the homes on the paper route were seniors. And so that affinity for seniors only grew as I reconnected with the folks in my neighborhood through the paper route, and then cut their grass or shoveled their snow. And that made me, it did two things. It gave me the taste for entrepreneurship, and it also, again, that affinity for seniors and really respecting them and their stories and the wisdom that they had to offer. And that was a foreshadow of my life. I'm still a paper boy in many senses of the word, and and I still love the stories and the wisdom from the more mature members of our society. So my company, Thrive Media, what we started 18 years ago now, is a magazine called Lifestyles Over 50. It serves the greater Lehigh Valley, and we wanted to be a resource really to help and encourage seniors to live well. In fact, our tagline is vibrant and healthy living, mind, body, and soul. So in that, we wanted to give people very practical ways that they can find care as they navigate the maze of the aging process, games and puzzles, and then even things like devotionals to really challenge them and maybe their presuppositions about life and how they see God, and really orient their hearts in the right direction to seek them. And then some practical things as well, like exercise and staving off early stage dementia and just memory issues, things of that nature.
Wow. And I was just speaking to someone who was talking about they're retired and a lot of their friends are retired, and a lot of them very successful in different arenas, and they just don't have any purpose. They don't feel like they have any purpose for life anymore after they've retired. And I love that you're helping inform people and encourage them to recognize there are needs. And one of the ways that you did that is I think you brought the first grandparenting summit to the Lehigh Valley, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the first one or not, but it was probably one of the largest one, in recent memory here. So I just look at my own life, and again, I just feel so incredibly blessed. Now my in-laws have relocated to Lehigh Valley, so my my children have 4 grandparents that are both married couples, are relatively healthy and active, involved in my kids' life. And between them and my parents, they provide a lot of practical help in helping us raise our children. Simple things as maybe taking the kids to the bus stop or running them to the soccer practice. But then even some bigger things, giving my wife and I a little bit of a reprieve and allowing us to have date night or to take a long weekend. And that is just such a blessing for us. And so the purpose of a grandparent, although it has changed in this season of life, they're not maybe working anymore like they used to, they still are incredibly valuable. And that's the message that I have, is that they're indispensable, I think, to young families like mine as we're seeking to raise our kids up, giving them the values, giving them the gospel, pouring into them, discipling them. We can't do it on our own. Yes. And depending on where our kids are located, my kids right now are in public school, and I think that's a good thing for certain families, and other families need to put their children in Christian school or homeschool, and there's so many wonderful options. But we need help in reinforcing those values outside of the house, and grandparents can do that, and they can model that, and it's a wonderful opportunity for my parents to come alongside, modeling integrity and living the godly life, but then also giving them new experiences and pouring that into them in ways that I just can't. It's a special relationship, and they might not be working full time, but they really need to recast their purpose in life to really help with their families. And that can be a challenge for a lot of families, because there are a lot of families that are divided. And it could be distance that stands in the way, or it could be emotional. There's a lot of families, the younger generations might not share the same faith as the older generations, and they say, Mom, I don't want you praying with my kids or talking to them about Jesus. And I understand that's a huge problem for a lot of families, and my heart goes out to them. Yes. So circling back to this grandparenting seminar, we wanted to reinvigorate grandparents with that purpose. Even if it's just praying, I don't like that phrase, just praying, because prayer is probably the most powerful thing that we can do. Yes. And we need to encourage grandparents to continue to pray and continue to pour into their grandkids in the ways that they can. It might only be sending a card or doing a FaceTime call, but there are ways that they can go out and to seek those relationships and invest in those relationships. And we want to give them that purpose. It's a divine purpose, and it's incumbent upon them to do it. And we need that as our generation, as parents raising our kids up.
Yes.
We need grandparents. And so we need them to get that message loud and clear. Grandparents, we need you.
Absolutely. How do we do that as younger generations? How do we pursue and honor our parents and grandparents?
Well, I think it starts with so many different things, so many different aspects of the Christian walk is with humility, recognizing that we have blind spots, even if we don't know what they are, and inviting our parents and grandparents and other older mentors into the conversation of our lives, and having spiritual mentors, inviting them in, giving them permission to speak into our lives, and helping fill those gaps that we may have in doing things with them as a family. So we've developed some family routines. One of the things my father started a couple years back was he invited we have 3 boys I had mentioned, and so my father will take my oldest and my sister's oldest, and they'll go to their place in South Carolina, and they work a little bit, so he gets to teach them about work ethic, and I think he pays them a little bit. And then they go out to eat, and they eat something fun, and they go to the beach, and they have a lot of fun, and they can really my father can pour into them, and it's a guy's time away.
Great.
And it was a rite of passage for them to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So just giving them the space and the permission. My wife was a little hesitant and reluctant in allowing my father to take she trusts my father without a shadow of a doubt, but it was a little unnerving, I think, just the first time to let them go away.
It's a big ask.
But then we have my parents have just, they had the idea, and so I can't take credit for any of this stuff. It just sort of happened to me, which is why I feel so blessed. We go to Sight and Sound now annually as a family, the extended family, and just freeing up time. I'm busy, really busy, probably too busy, but just freeing up time and space to allow them to guide that process in very special ways, to free up time in my schedule to go to Sight and Sound, take the day off. And that's an annual trip that we now do. We do things right after around Christmas as an extended family, and just giving them time and space to pour into our family. And I think that's the biggest thing, humility, and just the time and space to allow them to step into some of those voids that we need grandparents to step into as they shepherd our children's hearts as well.
Yes, and I appreciate how you said invite them into the conversation of our lives. And I often tell people, as we're considering doing these things, what are the rhythms you already have that you can invite people into? For us, we eat every day, as most people do in our country, thankfully. And so we have dinner with our parents once a week and dinner with my wife's parents once a week. And our kids love it. It's a great opportunity for us to be with them and also value them. And then just even, going to get a Christmas tree or whatever it is. I love the Sight and Sound and the trip with Grandpa. That's next level. That's exciting stuff. What would you say to older generations? What are some ways that they can pursue their kids who, a lot of people are busy, and in our culture, oftentimes we're kind of taught not to think about other people, including parents and grandparents. So how can they pursue in a loving way and respectful way their kids and grandkids?
Certainly. As I mentioned before, I think it all starts, everything that we should do as believers really needs to start with prayer. So I can't reinforce that enough. But outside of that, inviting your family members to doing fun things. Kids want to do fun things. Kids aren't going to recognize that they have emotional needs. They don't even know what's available to them, but just being creative and inviting them, a grandchild, to come along fishing, or really taking stock of what your children enjoy, your grandchildren enjoy, and trying to enter their world and coming alongside of them. I know as a father, many times I feel convicted on the weekends. I have my to-do list, and I drag my kids out to my to-do list. And sometimes I just need to stop and say, what would you like to do that I can enter your world and support you in that? And really asking questions, just doing simple things of being available as grandparents, to go to the child's musical at church, to show up at the games and root them on. They're very maybe passive activities that a senior might perceive, but man, are they important. Just your presence is just so important. It communicates value and purpose and identity to the grandchild that in ways that might not feel a natural or maybe a good use of your time as a senior, but it's just a blessing to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I think finding creative ways, I heard of, spoke with one woman, actually interviewed her about Legacy Coalition Grandparenting Summit, and Paula Quigley, and she did an escape room for her grandkids in the house, just put this exciting and fun game together. My mother, she's put together scavenger hunts when she comes to spend time with the kids, and they go out in the neighborhood, and it's exciting stuff. How would you, as we close here, what's one thing you would do to encourage someone who, a parent or grandparent who's geographically distant from their kids, so there's geographical space that they need to overcome?
Sure. And that's a question with a lot of our families now, that they're so spread apart. I know that for a lot of families, finances can be an issue, but the ones they'll try to time vacations or save up or put money aside to see the grandkids, to make it out there. Even freeing the parents up to do babysitting.
Yes.
And stay with them for the long weekend. I know a couple that they'll fly to California to watch the kids for the weekend, and they make it into a special weekend, and they have the means to do that. And I recognize that everybody can do that. I know of other grandparents that between those trips, or because they can't do those trips, they have a routine weekly FaceTime call that they'll do with their grandkids. They send cards and letters. In our modern world, our kids really don't get any mail, especially the young children. And there's a lot of things in our society, our modern society, that we've eliminated, things like the landline, and for better or for worse, that's probably a good thing. We still get a lot of junk mail, so we can do without the mail, but there's a lot of good things that we can get in the mail, and kids love getting mail. They love getting mail.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Jeff. This has been great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
We're going to take a quick break and then come back and talk more about how we can apply this to our lives.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Proverbs elevates the status of older generations. It says, gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. It also says the glory of young men is their strength, but the splendor of old men is their gray hair. As Christians, we're called to honor aging and bridge the gap between generations. Younger people should humbly learn from older generations, valuing their wisdom and foundations. In turn, older generations should continue to love and serve the younger, guiding them with grace. Imagine how much richer our lives would be if we genuinely treasured each other, sacrificing time and preferences to pursue one another in love. What if, as the family of God, we rejected individualism and embraced deep intergenerational unity? In doing so, we could build bridges across families, neighborhoods, and churches, sharing a love that draws the world to Jesus. Here are some steps that we can take today so that we can begin building bridges between generations tomorrow. First, start inside your own family. Read 1 Timothy 5, 1 through 4, and pray that God would show you how you can begin living out this truth in your family. How can you more deeply honor and pursue those who are older than you or younger than you? Maybe it's a weekly family dinner. Maybe it's a monthly family activity. Maybe it's an annual family vacation with multiple generations invited. Second, look outside your family. If you're younger, who are those in older generations in your church or neighborhood that you can begin treasuring in your life for Jesus? If you're older, who are those in younger generations that you can begin treasuring more deeply? Pick people you already connect with at some level, and then start small and go slow. Begin developing a relationship with them. Pray for them. Invite them to meals or holidays if they don't have family nearby. Find ways to serve them. Be creative, be patient, be persistent, be prayerful, and watch God do something incredibly meaningful in your relationships. Thank you so much for joining us for One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring Jesus-infused hope and purpose to many.